Hey, y'all. Some of you who know me know that I started following the far right around 2012. Uh, I started really paying attention to what was going on with them, what they were doing. I was lurking in some of their communication channels, their Facebook groups, that kind of thing. I had been watching their Discord channels, some of their message forums, all of that. And so between 2012 and 2016, I got a real good understanding of who they are and what was going on over there and the kind of strategies and ideas that they were talking about and using and all of that. And I was aware, I could see how much of their rhetoric, their talking points, their worldview was getting pushed into mainstream politics. It was overtaking the way that the conservative movement was communicating, right? The way that even the politicians were talking and communicating to their base. I was seeing all of that, and I was writing about it at the time, and not just writing about it. I was kind of a pain in the ass in many ways. I was a broken record trying to get people to pay attention to the threat that I perceived them to be, and that I perceived this far right movement in general to be. So when Trump came along and they coalesced behind the MAGA movement, I was very clear and very loud. I tried to be as loud as I could about the fact that they were uh, a significant portion of his support base, and that the way that he was speaking to white nationalism and to racism generally was really formative to why he was gaining popularity, and then why he won that election. Because of that stuff, and because I had been involved in some other activism before, and I was living in Richmond, Virginia at the time, which is only about 45 minutes away. I was at Unite the Right in August of 2017. So I was there that day, and the best way to describe it is that Unite the Right was a day that they were able to bring their worldview, the day they were able to make real the kind of world that they wanted and that they do want. And I understood that. Like I said, I had already been following them, paying attention to what they thought, what they said, all of that. The part of the process of that was it also ended up me learning a whole bunch about things like Franco's Spain, Pinochet's Chile, the military junta in Argentina, and of course, a bunch of things about Germany that I hadn't even known before that. So I'm saying this because I think right now, with the murders of Keith Porter and Renee Good and Alex Pretty, a lot of people in the country are going to be confronted with the fact that this is a real deal, no lies, no crap. This is a fascist government backed by a Christian white nationalist movement, and that is really disorienting. It's a very hard thing to come to terms with, and I think I have some experience that can be useful, might be helpful to some people. So after Unite the Right, Unite the Right was terrible. Heather Heyer's murder was terrible. Those were not particularly traumatic for me personally. And I think really what it was that I understood who they were before. I knew that was what they wanted. So there wasn't an aspect of shock or surprise for me personally. And but in the period after Unite the Right, partly because of what I had learned as a result of following and kind of watching them, paying attention to them, trying to get people to pay attention to them. The response to Unite the Right, between the way that the both sides bullshit was given credence. My understanding, as I said, I had been involved in activism in Richmond, Virginia, and Richmond has it's been a while since I lived there, but at the time it had a very strong activist community, and there was a very strong left activist community. And so in seeing all of these both sides arguments, seeing how seriously that was treated, I understood how unseriously people were taking the actual threat, right? I had already watched how successful they had been, the far right, this white nationalist movement. I had already watched how successful they had been in making their perspective mainstream. And I had not only that, but I had watched the number of times violence committed by people with clear and stated far right motives was written off as some kind of, lone wolf, right? That was what they always said. Oh, it's a lone wolf. It wasn't like, that these guys were all talking to each other on all these forums, and that many of them were encouraging each other to commit all kinds of violence, where I had seen very directly the way that was not acceptable in what you would think of as leftist spaces. I saw the way that the state of Virginia reacted to Unite the Right. And when I say the state of Virginia, I mean Terry McAuliffe's administration. I mean the Virginia State Police. Most of the prosecutions that came out of Unite the Right were actually because activists went and searched footage and found the people in that footage and made their names public, which more or less forced Virginia to prosecute those people, the ones that it did. And I saw the way all of that went down nationally, the way that we kind of collectively didn't really respond to Unite the Right. And I had a bit of not even a bit, I really had a huge existential crisis. Huge. And the short version of the story is that I had that existential crisis because of what I had learned and because of what I had come to understand about the other right-wing authoritarian governments that had come into existence and how they had come into existence. And I understand the reaction to Unite the Right made me realize there was no way that here in the United States we were going to be able to spin up the machinery of opposition quickly enough to deal with that, with the urgency that it called for. Um, and then, when Biden was running for president, he had no plan for that. And then during his presidency, they failed to prosecute Trump, all of that. So a lot of you are having a confrontation with how real this is, that I had a while ago. And I had that a complete existential crisis. It affected my personal life significantly. I have since learned that I'm autistic, and that contributed to also creating a really deep depression. And I honestly, starting around like 2018, like mid 2018, late 2018, I've really started having a like, do I really want to hang around for this? Do I want to be here for this? Because I know it's coming. We are going to let a fascist. We're gonna this fascist movement is going to end up getting into power because we're just not responding to it with any real urgency. And because I now know that I'm autistic, that has also contributed to a history of severe depression and anxiety, and understanding that I have that stuff in my background, right? That's my medical record. I also understand the way that the far right deals with people who have mental illnesses, people who have histories of mental illness, people who have disabilities. I understand all that. It's not good. You may not be aware of it, but it's bad. It's no better than it is for queer people or people of color or Jews. It's no better for us than it is for them. So it's bad. And I understood that at the time. And I really did. I had a real serious existential crisis. Like, what am I going to do? Is this worth it? And I had to make a decision. And the decision that I came to was that it didn't actually matter. It doesn't actually matter how I die, right? How I die is not really that important. I could die. There's millions of ways you can die. And you don't really have a lot of control over a lot of them, right? I mean, I could die in a car accident tomorrow. Plane engine could fall out of the sky. Who knows? You can die a lot of ways. And does it really matter if I die because fascists decided to kill me, or because I can't get health care that I need because of the way that things are? Does it matter? Would it be any different to die? If fascists kill me, is it any better to like work myself to death because I'm trying to meet the capitalist demand than it would be to get killed by fascists? Probably not. I don't think that doesn't really matter. There's nothing in that really. You just die both ways. It's over, But what I came to was the way that I live is actually what's important. The way that I die isn't. It's not that important, And I decided that, okay, if this is going to be the case, and I've tried, and I had put significant effort and time into trying to get people to pay attention, and to try and get people to respond with the urgency that the situation actually called for. And I couldn't, I'm just one guy, and so I decided that the way I lived was more important, and that I was going to live and I was going to keep being me, and I was going to keep being myself. I was going to keep being somebody who was going to say, this is not right, and this is not okay. And I was going to keep telling people that we can do better. And I don't mean just better than these fascists. We could certainly do better than that. But I mean better than what was before, too. Because what was before, like, led to this. And we can do better. I know we can. I am seeing it right now, and so are you. You know, for a long time, a lot of the people who are now supporting this put a whole lot into trying to confuse us about what was actually important. And they did a pretty good job. A lot of us have been pretty confused. You know, I know that there have definitely been points in my life where I was very confused about what was actually important. But the thing is that if you look at the response to ICE in Minnesota, you look at it in LA, you look at it in Chicago, all over the country, people know it's important, and they're showing up for it. They're showing us, right? They're showing us that they know. If you're out there and you are experiencing this kind of existential crisis, and you can't believe this is going on, and you don't know how to make sense of it, I understand that. I get that. Totally. Completely get that. I went through it for a while. It took a while. And I did it. Nobody else was going through. Well, maybe not nobody else, but you know, part of my problem was that I was looking around at my life, realizing like, oh God, we're actually going to, the fascists are actually going to take over. They're going to get a chance to take power. And the rest of the country was not having that experience at the same time. You know, I was kind of alone, and I sounded like a crazy person when I said stuff like that. So you at least are not alone. You're not going through this alone. Many, 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 many millions of people are going through it. But you can make a decision, you know? And the decision that you can make is to be free. They can make the land between the borders that we call the United States a hell. They can do that. But they can't make you not be you. And they can't make you comply. They can threaten you. They can threaten you with all kinds of things, right? But how you live is important. That's what makes you who you are. That's eventually all that really matters, right? And so, you know, I just wanted to say that because I've been there, and I get it. It's really hard. It's very difficult to look to realize that this is actually happening. It is. It's difficult. And the only reason I'm not going through that is because I made the decision like 2019, 2020. I was like, oh, yeah, this is gonna happen, and okay, like this is the way that I have to deal with it. So I understand, but remember, as bad as they are, as terrible as they are, as evil as they are, look at how many people are responding, how many people are putting things on the line. They're taking risks that they don't totally have to, right? But they are taking them. They are showing up. They're doing the right thing because it's right. We can do that. And we can learn from this. We can beat them, and we can build something better. We can make sure that people like this never get power again. We can do that. So hold on. We need you.